We have the Insta360 link right here, and we have the OBSBot Tiny 4K right here. We're just going to show some of the differences here, newest firmware, newest software. Though the OBSBot has gained the ability to change landscape to portrait, at least that I can tell, compared to when I first reviewed it. And the Instalink has that whiteboard mode, the desk view mode. So there's more modes on the Instalink. When it comes to these cameras, there's a sizable difference in the size of them. They both have USB, Type-C on the back of the Insta360 link. And then on the OBSBot, we have the same idea, USB, but we also have another port, and that's to power it through USB with this other connection type as well. You only need one connect at a time, so that's one difference there. Both have 1/4 inch threads for the bottom, but the OBSBot does have an extra little mounting option, which is magnetic. But this is the only way you're going to connect on top of a screen or laptop, is using the magnetic mount that we see here. Now, however, the Insta itself has this little tiny thing built into it. That's all. Not quite as versatile, but it's not going to fall off because the OBSBot, it's only magnetic. So if you were to tilt it, of dropping by accident versus something that's solidly on. However, if you get beyond the weight of this, it can tip forward. Sometimes it helps to actually add a little weight to here and to have over top your screen, so it holds it into place. But that's a quick overview. There is a way to update it holding the front and everything, but the newest software allows you to update through the firmware through the software, so we don't have to play around with the touch sensitive front for updating. Now with all the same lighting, I'm now on my OBSBot Tiny 4K. And how is the image quality side by side? Let's get a side by side showing the image quality of both these cameras when I had them recording like so. So right now I have both these cameras side by side. We'll get to sound testing momentarily. But one thing I could tell, even with the newest firmware on the Tiny 4K, is look how sharp the on air is without being on air. So the Insta does indeed look like it has a sharper, stronger image, but both are pretty darn good considering. Now let's see how it works for image flip. I'm going to flip both images. Mirror image, so different names, but same exact idea as we can see right now. And mirror image. Now if you want to know the firmware version, Insta360 is firmware v1.2.1.8 build 5, while our OBSBot Tiny 4K is firmware version 1.2.5.3, which was literally, must have been released today because I actually updated the OBSBot just like yesterday or the day before. So it's pretty crazy how these updates can happen. Competition's a great thing. Now the software is also the newest version I could get at this moment in time. And it is December 2nd, 2022, and I'm running the newest software for both versions. Instalink controller is software version 1.3.0. OBSBot Tiny 4K software version is 2.0.15. No way. This is insane. I just updated the software for the OBSBot, and again, they have new software within days. So right now I'm doing a test with these two different cameras set up right close side by side. So on this side right here, we have the OBSBot Tiny 4K and we have Insta360 360 right here. Cover these pretty good. And yeah, we can see the one pops into spot. I'm going to cover that again. So it's trying to focus up close and let go. So Insta kind of focuses differently, but beyond that, we can also see colors slightly different between both cameras. And we can also see that the field of view on the Tiny 4K is wider. We can see more of the scene. I can see like the back panel behind me. So on the one camera, let's see if I move my hand, we can see the one camera here. And we can see on the lens where it goes to the computer screen, I have them both lined up about the same. Since they're side by side, this should make it quite easy to compare the two. And we can also go to internal sound of both of these cameras and quickly go through software and compare software to software. So let's start right now with the basic software options. So on Instalink 360, we see these basic menus. But then if I go to the Tiny 4K, let's move this menu over so I can see side by side. we have this similar sort of menu. So I can reset the location of the camera, but I can do the same thing on the Insta with this little right here. We can add location presets, but we can also add location presets on the Insta. Interesting that way. Now we can also tap to turn on or turn off AI tracking on our OBSBot. And this location is very, very simple to make it work right off the bat. I like how that is. So for me, that layout right there of having the AI tracking lock or unlock a win for the OBSBot Tiny 4K because convenience in this case. Now I can choose different locations for headroom, standard, and motion tracking. Now for zoom in, this is one we can view right now. I'm going to move these menus out of the way so we can try the zoom in, zoom out feature. So let's first go to, we're totally zoomed out on both cameras, the Insta. Now let's go to our OBSBot and do the same thing. Wow, the OBSBot really zooms in more, but of course the image quality is really destroyed. But that's because zoomed in too much. It's not zooming optically, that's digital zoom. So if I make them about the same, it's weird. The point of view is different, so I'm looking more inflated on my OBSBot right here. But yeah, that ruined the image quality doing that such thing, especially at that much zoom. So the Insta is a little more limited in terms of how much you can zoom in and zoom out if that matters to you. Our next menus. Oh, and by the way, this is this little zoom in options here that I can just choose that as well. The Insta Link doesn't have this little part where you just zoom in, zoom out to these different degrees, but not an overly big deal for at least my scenario. Now, if we go to image settings, we both have image settings. Now check this out. On the OBSBot Tiny 4K with the newest software, they added new features. So I can change exposure manually. I could do the same on the Insta360, which I noticed that before in the Insta360 before I ever noted that on the OBSBot. Now our exposure and shutter speed. Our shutter speed is how many frames per second does. And then of course lower the shutter speed, the brighter become, but then I can actually lower my ISO, for instance, and get a clearer picture. Now let's see if I could do what I can do with a OBSBot. Oh wow, I can really go slow. I'd recommend at least having the same shutter speed, if not double. Double's better actually because you don't get as much motion blur because both these are going to motion blur somewhat. Change both to 500. And let's go full screen on both these here. Whoop. Full screen. So here's my full screen on my Insta Link. Let's zoom that down again. And my full screen on my OBSBot. If we can notice that, at least if your screen's good enough, you should be able to notice that the OBSBot Tiny 4K has more noise in the image. It's not as clear. OBSBot Tiny 4K is not as sharp as the Insta that I'm seeing so far with this amount of light. Now we have different other settings, the white balance. We got 1-for-1, we got brightness, contrast, sharpness. The same idea here on the OBSBot Tiny 4K, but we can change the hue on this menu. The hue will give me a different color. You can see, look at this. It's kind of cool actually in a sense because you can change it. But what am I normally? That's really funky. It's like, okay, that's really weird. So on our more settings, we have a little more settings on our OBSBot Tiny 4K. One thing that this has, of course, is device sleep mode, so you can change it to sleep. The other one, I believe, has some sort of idea. You can set your time on the Tiny 4K. And we both have gesture settings. So we have a lot of similar things, but our Tiny 4K, we have so many different things. Right now I have noise reduction on. You saw more noise in the Tiny 4K, but I believe it's also a smaller sensor. I'll confirm that later. We have the update available for firmware, which I'm pretty sure I got. Oh, wow. I updated yesterday. And there's already a new firmware. Huh. Okay, I was originally filming this with the newest update, and to update the OBSBot takes forever. The Insta Link for a firmware update is literally about 3 times shorter time span. No joke. Now my Insta Link, you also have the option for firmware upgrade, which I just did before I started this video. So right now you're watching each video for the respective microphone. I'll have the name above, which one you're seeing, because there's OBSBot and there's the Insta360 link. So which one is best? Well, any problems I have, I will mention right after you see both of these. Right now I'm recording with the Insta360 link, and right now you should be hearing the audio from the microphone itself. And let's see if I can switch the audio while I'm recording. I'm going to switch. Oh, I can't switch yet. So I'm going to exit and go back in and see if you hear any difference in audio. Right now I'm using the audio through my Focusrite using my AT4040. I don't know if we heard any difference in the audio whatsoever. Okay, this is really weird. So I used the software included with this webcam and it didn't work through OBS to automatically switch it. And I'm switched modes, you can see right here. Very unexpected. First time I ever seen that on the OBSBot Tiny 4K because that didn't seem to exist when I originally reviewed this webcam. Right now we're listening to the OBSBot Tiny 4K and I can hear, as you can see there, let's see, I'm going to do that. Press mute. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? And let's see if the volume adjustment works in real time. Down, turning it back up. And I don't seem to be able to choose my device for audio. So I might be stuck to specific external software at this time for choosing my audio, and that does seem like the case. When it comes to some differences between the Insta360 and the OBSBot 4K, this is pretty much the lightning round here where I'm going to go through different things. For one, the Insta360 link tends to respond a lot faster when it comes to changing modes. Like if I switch to the vertical filming mode, the OBSBot is really, really slow and doesn't flip the same way. The image quality is definitely better on the Insta because it flips to actually have the sensor the right way and you actually get more of the image. Now, when it comes to different things, if not talking about image quality, what we have are settings on the OBSBot Tiny 4K that's a little more useful, that I can record internally and lower and raise my volume, just a little slider. I can mute with a little button right on the filming part. It films in MVK or whatever format, which goes directly into my DaVinci Resolve Studio 18. Not a problem. I can edit right through there. No other editing needed. However, the Insta360 link films to an AVI format. I cannot edit through DaVinci Resolve 18, at least not yet, and I can't edit through Magix Vegas 17 or 16 that I used. So using the included software is a real pain for the Insta, unless you're going to go through OBS or something like that. You might actually notice that I recorded through the software included with the Insta360 link. You might be wondering, how did I do that then if I can't just simply toss the editing software? I had to toss the files into another program I downloaded, take me into another step, and going through Handbrake and exporting the format to like MP4. Then I could edit it. What a pain in the rear end for no reason. Insta, told you, fix it before in my review video. Obviously, you did not. So, guys, come on. The software, one advantage the Insta does have for included software is I can change the microphone. I can change to this microphone, but OBS sounds better for audio than the included software with the Insta link. So generally you'd want to use either device through OBS or some other external recording device, not through so much its included software. So there's that. Now when it comes to file format and file size, the OBSBot Tiny 4K is much smaller file size. Let's say if I had a file that's 400 megs with this, the OBSBot might only be 60 megs. Huge file discrepancy size when filming through its respective software. That's the included software for using that. Now, the Insta360 link has a whole bunch of different modes. I have that desk mode where I'll automatically flip to the desk and face down. And of course, since I did my review, there's been updates. But yeah, it flips the desk, faces down. It has the whiteboard mode where you have the little whiteboard stickers, and you can do more than whiteboard. I actually changed my case to a whiteboard where it's actually white in my computer case. Yeah, and I put the markers there and it faced on there. It didn't have to even be white. I got a table that you normally eat at, like it's a fake wooden looking table. Put against the wall, put the markers on, and you can basically use anything as a whiteboard. It's pretty crazy that way. So If you're a gamer though, you're not going to use that. A gamer might use the keyboard mode. It'll be up to you if you want that little bit wider image. On the OBSBot, Tiny 4K has a slightly bigger field of view and it zooms in far more, but when you get a far more zoomed image, it's more grainy. Pick your poison. So this is my comparison between both the Insta360 Link and the OBSBot Tiny 4K. It's up to you if you want to save the money on the OBSBot, which is like 30% less cost, which isn't bad savings at all, or if you want the Instalink. Oh, and another thing about the Instalink, it has more options. It puts straighter lines. So my lines above my head, it's going to generally be straighter, while the Tiny 4K is kind of more fighting with getting it straight. So, okay, that's one annoyance about the OBSBot. It doesn't do straight lines like the Tiny 4K really does. This is Eric of Not BIOS Tech and Reviews. Thanks for watching and have yourselves a most wonderful day.